I've been working on this one for a while. This is the first Victrola VV-IX, 1911. 1911 to 1924 were the production dates, up to 26 for export, with revisions along the way, you know, to make it easier to produce, more efficient, whatever. But this was the very first one. This is not the earliest version. There was an early and a late 1911. The only difference being the brake. And this is the only year where they actually used two different kinds of brakes that were not the conventional style that you saw in later machines. One being the bullet brake, and the other one being the one I'm going to show you here, that you don't see too often. Only the late 1911, possibly the very first 1912s, had this style of brake on it. And this was not used ever again in other Victors. Probably was expensive to produce. Obviously, it has more moving parts than the later ones had. And other differences, of course, on these machines, these early machines. For one, this is the style where the motor hangs directly into the horn opening. Basically, the horn is here, and right in the middle, you have the motor hanging there. It's not an isolated motor, so that it is possible to hear motor noise over the sound of, you know, like a very low tone record of any kind. You might hear a little whir and a click in there. Old style speed regulator. They use this speed regulator for a few more years after this. That shows up again. We have the tone arm. This is a different style of tone arm from the ones you will see on the later models. This is actually a 1912 tone arm. This machine came to me missing parts and with other problems, and I had to wait several years. That's more than several years, probably 8 or 9 years, before I had enough parts to put this together. I acquired a box full of 1912 Victrola VV-IX parts, and the 12 has a different horn from the 13. And it has a different horn from the 1911, although I think some of the last 1911s possibly did have this horn. The only difference is there's a cast iron elbow under here that connects it to the wooden part of the horn. With this style, you have a crane here, this style here at the top, that slides down on and screws in with the two screws here, while the 1911, the very first style, only had the same type of tone arm, but had a screw that went down in and no crane over here. That's how you tell them apart. See, this machine is number, I can't even read that. Wow, eyes are getting bad. 14,293 with a B suffix on there. Victrola VV-IX, the 9th. 14,293 out of some 600,000 machines made, so it's pretty early. Not a whole lot of survivability on these, you know. They sold quite a few in the first year. Was always, and every year Victor made this machine, it was pretty much the most popular machine they had. They just sold lots and lots of them. Now on these early machines also, essentially the motor in this looks pretty much like the one in that Victor 3 that I did, or the 1913 I did in previous videos. Not a lot of difference there. They didn't do any major changes on the motor until about 1914, 15, somewhere in there. I think 14 or late 13. But anyway, difference is that these are less efficient motors. Not less efficient, more difficult to produce because they had more moving parts. The cranes, you know, that came off on either side of the spring barrel. This has a spring barrel with a style of cover that press fits on. There's no clips or screws to hold it in place. So it is actually possible for them to pop off sometimes. I've seen that happen. And they don't retain grease as well, so if you add a little too much, it will squeeze out very easily on those. But they worked. These also have a different type of knob. Now, you see people selling knobs on eBay or whatever with a screw on the back here and it goes through to the front. Not these. These are essentially a screw-in. These knobs have a screw thread. They screw right into the wood, and that's that. So if you need knobs for a 1911 or 1912, you might be in trouble if you're missing one because you can't go to the part sellers and buy a brand new one. Other than that, this case remains unchanged right up until, I believe, early 1914, somewhere in there, when they got, no, I'm sorry, that's not true. And I actually built one of these, I should know. The 1913 got the isolated horn. That's when they did it. So this is a 1911 and a 1912 case. 1913 looks very similar, but it has an isolated horn, while this does not. And by 1915, they got feet on the bottom, little feet that you see all the way up to 1926, to the very last one. All right, we'll spin some records on this. This has been a long time waiting to be put together. I have to put the camera down and put this in, or I'm liable to scratch something. We don't want that. And okay, now, the one thing about these machines is a lot of winding. About twice as much winding as you will find on the later motors. But it's very easy to wind. See, 2 fingers? That's how easy it is to wind these, at least when they've been properly greased and oiled. Very easy to wind. And these have the female crank. So there were a lot of improvements that were made later on in tone arms and motor styles and cranks. I mean, the basic case remains the same size, except it gets the feet later on. And by, let's see, 1923, I think they made the horn slightly larger. I forget. I have to look into that. But you don't see a whole lot of these really early ones. Like I said, they were later on replaced by more up-to-date models and such, and they got sent off to the barn or the kids' playhouse or the basement or wherever else. I mean, I've seen some of these in incredibly rough condition. Really bad. Massive insect and dry rot damage and rust, missing parts. There we go. Let's try this cameo record. It says Lady of the Evening, which is Arthur Lang's Orchestra. 1922 date on there, and I got 2 records in my hand. Not gonna do that. 1, okay. Open the sound doors. And you'll notice right away the difference here. Instead of having this 3 or 4 louvers, it has all of these. But this is just a panel. If you look, I don't know if I can actually see in there, but I'll try. See if you can see the motor in there. Nah, not really, but it's behind there, though, trust me. It's right inside there, right by the front. So any motor noise will be quite noticeable on a very low tone record. A little windy today, so bear with me. And there we go. One thing about these you will notice, and they all do it with this style motor. I don't care how much grease and lubricant you put inside the barrel, they will still make spring noise. Light, rumbly here and there. It's more noticeable with this model because the motor is right in front. You do hear pretty much everything the motor does. Not with jazz records. When you're playing jazz records or anything loud, you're not really going to notice any kind of motor noise with this machine any more than you would with the ones with the isolated horns. But, and of course this is the exhibition reproducer on here. Strangely enough, that was still with the machine, but the tone arm was missing. Don't know why. I suspect somebody probably broke the screw that holds it on, took it off, put it aside, and lost it. Because this machine was sitting for a very, very long time. There was an amazing amount of filth I had to scrub off the case. Doing this one-handed is never easy, but that's why. I don't like doing it left-handed. And that was Creoline Days. There we go. Let's take the needle out first so I don't forget and play it again. Cameo label, Creoline Days, Arthur Lang's Orchestra, Foxtrot. Typical 20s jazz. Okay, what do we got? The Manhattan, I played that one earlier. It didn't play very well, actually. Just Break the News to Mother. This is actually a later record. I will save that for a later machine. Ah, another cameo. Last Night on the Back Porch. Varsity 8. Never heard of them, but oh, is that a crack? Oh, that is a crack. Well, you know what? We're going to play it anyway. Because sometimes, even when they got a crack like that, they'll still be able to play. So we'll give it a shot. Worst it can do is skip a little bit or make a little tick, tick, tick noise. That's pretty common. These records were not unbreakable by any means. They were very breakable. Well, if you're going to play a cracked record, play it on a lidded machine, because the lid tends to eliminate a lot of the surface noise on the record, which was the point of the lid in the first place. It wasn't just to keep things clean under here. And that keeps the noise from transmitting, you know, to what you hear. You don't hear it through the horn. Let's see, the band plays Home Sweet Home. This is a waltz by Bob Haring's Velvet Tone Orchestra. Velvet Tone sounds fancy. Yeah, this machine spent a lot of years not being played. I mean, it shows signs of having been used, definitely. Somebody, now these motor boards, they attach with 4 screws. You see them there? Right there, 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 and there. And there's no knob to lift them up. Now the later 9s, they pivot up like this. And there's a knob. You grab it, you pivot it up. Has pivots. You do what you got to do with the oiling, greasing, and then you pivot it back down, and they only have 2 screws. These ones, you have to take the turntable off, and then you have to grab here or somewhere where you really not a good idea to grab to pull it up. It's kind of awkward, and they did improve. Like I said, this is the first year of this machine. So as production went on, they came up with different ideas on how to do things, how to improve things, and things that work better, like having a pivoting motorboard. Now you can see here, like right in here, look very carefully, what does that look like? And on this side, Same thing, right here. Those are pry marks from a screwdriver or other implement via fork. I don't know, someone stuck in there and popped that up so they could lift it to grease it. At least I know they were greasing the motor, but I wish they hadn't used an implement on the wood to do it, because they kind of dented it up a little bit. You see a bunch over here too. That's why they changed it and made it a little easier for people to deal with. Okay, let's try the band plays Home Sweet Home. I probably should wind it a little bit. I know it'll play 4 records, but I don't like to push it. Some of these records are worn. Whoops, what happened? And when they get worn like that, they can put more stress on the motor, more demands on the springs, and you won't get as many plays out of the springs that way. This one's got some surface damage. It still has the same crack, a little bit more pronounced on this side by the look of it, but you never know. It may still play okay, and if it does, it's maybe the last time this record's ever played. You know? It could crack further and become unplayable, so might as well play it and save it. Save the sound anyway. Okay. These things, when they're dead flat, will wind like 75 to 80 times. Okay. But this machine actually had the original Victor, it had a set of original Victor springs, not necessarily the original ones. They were Victor Talking Machine Company springs, and they were in good shape. Yeah, you heard the clicking a little more pronounced than that one. But at least it played. Not bad for a record to crack that bad. Fortunately, it happens. Not much you can do about it. That's why I go through these little stacks over here and test them one by one. None of these have actually played yet.